All these patients complaining they can't get their medicines. Insurers and PBMs are often owned by the same giant company, so middlemen, like me, decide what medicines you can get and how much you pay. But don't worry, if your prescription gets denied, we know another one that works for us. I mean, you.
Washington should stop PBMs and insurers from driving up drug costs. Learn more at phrma.org/insurer costs. Paid for by Pharma.
This time of year, everyone talks about going dry. But at Athletic Brewing Company, we're skipping that because we prefer going athletic, which isn't dry at all. From crisp Goldens to hoppy IPAs and limited releases in between, you'll find something that fits your style. Every single non-alcoholic brew is packed with flavor and the same craft experience you love. So yeah, you could call it dry, but there's really nothing dry about it. Find your new favorite near beer at athleticbrewing.com. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion with me, your host, Stephen Wallis. After only 11 days of cricket, Australia retained the Ashes with victory in the third test in Adelaide. And to look back at the action, a variety of guests have joined me in the Ashes, the final say. 3 former test cricketers, 2 current internationals, journalists, authors and a radio presenter spread across 5 parts give us their reaction to Australia's 4-1 series victory. My guest on part 2 of the Ashes, the final say, is Stuart Law, former Australian international and now head coach of Nepal. I caught up with Stuart to get his thoughts on the Ashes. Stuart, you told me by email that you thought the Ashes would be 3-1 Australia. I can only take your word for that. But what are your thoughts on the Ashes?
Yeah, to be honest, it was probably I thought it'd be a lot closer than what it was. I mean, there's been a lot of things said about the way that it panned out. And I think the English team, again, they threw away opportunities to, particularly in that first test, to make a real statement to start off with a win. They just couldn't wrestle the opportunity, or they let it slide. The approach they took in the second innings of their batting just threw it away down the drain. But look, yeah, 3-1. I thought it was only going to be 4 tests to get a result. I thought Sydney would end in a draw because of the weather. But that proved to be one of the better test matches weather-wise. After the first day. But look, it's great that Australia won. I'm blessed. I've got 2 passports, so I can sit on the fence and I can fall either side. Whoever is competing well in the day, I can jump on their bandwagon. But the Australians, I think, were just too good. Travis Head and Mitch Starc, really stuck their hand up in the Ashes series to wrestle it away. Pat Cummins made his appearance in the third test at Adelaide, and led the team well. Is destructive best with the ball in hand, and everyone else just chipped in around. Cameos from Michael Nessa and Scotty Boland. They really set the tone for the Aussies, and wrestled the authority away from the English.
So you've got a British passport as well?
Yeah, I live in the UK. I have done for a long time, and I keep sticking my hands up for roles in the UK, but keep getting rejected. I think it's because everyone thinks I live in Brisbane, but no, I live just outside of Manchester, and I've had a British passport since 2005. So yeah, I'm either I'm British or Australian, depends on who's winning at the time.
So, putting your British passport on, what did you think England did wrong?
Yeah, look, I think when you look at the way that Australia's set up, no Hazelwood, no Lyon for the first test, and they're your bankers to bowl a lot of overs for not many runs. I think to put Mitchell Starc should have been put under more pressure, particularly in that first test. To really try and target him and go hard at him was, I think, probably the biggest mistake they made. They should have made Starkey bowl a million overs in the first two tests instead of trying to belt him out of the attack. They should have just ground him down and kept attacking the other bowlers. You had Brendan Doggett on debut in the first test and the second test, playing his second. Michael Nessa came in the second test. And their guys, they're not 140 plus, they're 130, 135 at best. And you got Starkey, who bowled at 140 plus for every ball in the Ashes. So, it didn't make sense to really go hard at Mitchell Starc. I would have been saying to our batters, let's respect Starc, let's keep him out there, let's make him bowl a lot of overs, and we attack at the right time the other guys. The new ball is very difficult to attack on the up as a batsman in Australia, particularly on the extra bounce in Perth and Brisbane. So don't put that away until the ball gets a bit older. I'm not saying don't play any shots, but just be smart with the way you go about it, being with your aggression. Australian play aggressive style of cricket. England take it to the next level, but it borders on recklessness. That's where they went wrong. They just didn't recognise the moment. They wanted to put the opposition under too much pressure, if you meant, and it put pressure on them by losing wickets at critical times. You'd see a partnership happen, and then the batter come in and they try and accelerate too quickly, and all of a sudden they're out as well, and you'd lose too many wickets at important times. And there were times where they just needed to sit back, just take their time. Ben Stokes tried it a few times, but he needed another ally there. And I think what England really learnt from that is that the two most successful batters, I know Bethel only played 2 tests, but he probably looked more comfortable than the most batters that went out there from both teams. And they played an aggressive cricket, but they also played smart. They hit the ball late, they hit the ball soft, but when they got the opportunity, he and Root, showed that they can put the ball away for 4 as well. And that steady accumulation of runs. And you look at their strike rates for Test cricket. You don't really look at strike rates, but seems to be the buzzword in Test cricket nowadays. Look at their strike rates. It's not disgraceful. It wasn't in the 40s. It was up in the 60s or 70s. So, they showed both teams. They showed how to play in high pressure situations. Score their runs at a good clip, but give the opposition very little opportunity to get you out.
You made a good point there about being in a good position. I was at Perth in the first test, and like you were saying about Mitchell Starc, we were effectively 100 for 1 about lunchtime, just after lunch on the second day.
Yep, exactly, mate. And all it needed was that next session. Go to lunch, sit down, and say, okay, let's just consolidate here. We don't need to go at a clip. We don't need to go at 5 and over, 6 and over. But that's what it looked like. Everyone came out and they thought, well, we need to just get this game moving forward. And we're in the third innings and we're just after lunch on day 2. The game's moving forward anyway. If England set their stalls into just to finish the day, it didn't matter how many runs they scored, they would have been 250, 300 in front on day 2, no matter how many wickets down. If they were still batting at the end of the day, the next day would have put immense pressure, more pressure on Australia. So, you'll never know. To come out and just, almost just throw caution to the wind and try and drive on the up. I remember doing that as a young kid playing for Queensland, and Alan Border grabbed me by the ear and gave me a clip and said, if you play like that, you won't score any runs, son. And that's if you talk to an Aussie and you're an Aussie batter playing in, Perth and Brisbane against a new ball, you don't play that shot. So pretty simple.
And I think Australia's scoring rate was actually faster than England, despite Bazball and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you put it that down to Travis Head though. Travis, he plays his way. It's not something that he's gone out and said, "Well, this is what I'm going to do." That's just how he plays. He sees a bad ball, he hits it. I love his approach. I love his mentality towards cricket. It's almost like he just hasn't got a care in the world, although he cares deeply about it. Knowing the ball, I coached him in the under-19 Australian team, and he cares about his cricket. But he's got to that stage where he's not bothered about getting out. And once you hit that, it's total freedom. You defend the good balls, you keep the good ones out, you rotate the strike. He looked ungainly at times, but that's just the way Trav plays. And if you get it wrong, he punishes you. And I think himself, his strike rate was way up, in the 80s or 90s. But he also backed it up with multiple hundreds, and we got three in the end. And took the Ashes away from the English. So yeah, Australia, we've been playing an aggressive brand of cricket since Steve Law came in. He said we just need to score runs at a clip so we've got more time to bowl the opposition out. That's basically all the theory is. So it wasn't new, but Australia played with a little bit more. They were subdued at times. They recognised moments where we just need to sit in and not go too hard. But when the opportunity came and we had the game at the mercy, we could then put the foot down and enjoy ourselves.
As a coach, what did you make to England's fielding and their catching?
Well, Australia weren't great either. They dropped a few catches, but it's easy sitting here. I mean, the viewing at some of the grounds is difficult, particularly if you're in the West, in WA. I know the new stand is very tall, but that the sun's a lot brighter in the West, and if you're in shade, you've got sunlight on part of the ground, shade on the other. The red ball's difficult to pick up. I get it, but that's an excuse that players can use and coaches can use. Maybe it's not so much the skill level; it's just the concentration level. You need to concentrate a lot harder, and sometimes players have been out there. It's their first Ashes. The crowds are brutal. I didn't play in an Ashes in Australia, but I was part of the coaching setup, and the noise and the distractions all the way around. Whether you're on one side of the ground or the other, the distractions are there, and if you're not 100% focused, every ball there is that opportunity you can drop. And look, I think it's basics. It's just you can't get away from the basics, and fielding's basic. You just got to keep working harder at it, and maybe they need to not play as much golf or spend as much time at Noosa. Or mind you, I'd rather go to Noosa than go to cricket training. It's a beautiful place, but maybe they need to focus on that an area. But God knows, everyone drops catches. It's no one's immune to that, but it's just the timing of it all, and with all the press that was around the preparation and the off-field happenings, etc. It just sort of spirals out of control, and people are going to question it. But there's no question the harder team, the team that works hardest, will take the most catches.
Finally, then, putting your English-British hat on, can England win the Ashes back in 2027?
Oh, mate, they should have won it last time in England. They should have.
Well, moral victory. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. There is that. But they should have beaten us. Edgbaston, I think it was. Again, the second innings batting, they tried to accelerate the game too fast and ended up, falling short of a defendable total. There's no reason why. The English players have got high skill. You're talking about Harry Brook, one of the most gifted batters on the planet. I think he just needs to, understand that there's an importance on, what he's trying to do for England, and not just for himself and his teammates, but the whole country. Once you get that perception in, mate, he can destroy anyone. I'd like to see him bat until he gets 100, and then he can play any shot he likes. Once he's doing that, I think he will be that generational cricketer. Bethel now comes in. He showed extreme maturity in his second Ashes Test match to score his first 100. First class 100. There's no reason why he can't. Be the linchpin along with Joe Root at number 4. So there's 3 and 4, and you got Brook at 5. Those 3 can take the game away from Australia. And England, they've got to work out the surfaces they want to play on against the Aussies. They've got to work out the tempo they want to play at, and recognising moments. And once they understand that, yes, bowling might be a bit of a concern. Jofra, played 3 tests in a row, but finished, injured, whether he's injured or just they said, look, go away and we'll get ready for the T20 World Cup. they need to find Woody now out of it. Mark Wood looks like he's probably played his last Test match. They just need to find, some other bowlers. Josh Tongue's had a ripper, mate. There's no reason why he can't cause problems with the lengthy bowls in the English conditions with the Duke's ball. Australians don't like facing the ball that moves around. So, there is hope, and unfortunately, this one series has put so much pressure on everybody involved in the England cricket team. And teams playing at home are very difficult to beat. And Australia, it doesn't matter, second team, third team, whatever, people are labelling that Australian team. You're playing against Australia in Australia. It's a very, very difficult time for the opposition. And we see that, people play, teams going to India, playing India. It doesn't matter which Indian team you play against. They're difficult to beat in their own conditions, and that's how it should be. So there's no reason why England can't wrestle those Ashes back. Just need a bit more smarts, a bit more, grit, and they've got the stroke play, they've got the flair. They just need to put that mental toughness in place, and once they do that, they should be competing with every team in the world.